You're now listening Podcast Audio's exclusive
International Storytelling Event.
The story When I Met Coretta Scott King, based on real-life events, written by Willie D. Davies IV, who's also our guest storyteller. Willie D. Davies IV from Atlanta, Georgia, USA. He's a well-known actor, author, and a recording artist.
My name is Willie D. Davis IV, and I had the opportunity to meet the beautiful Coretta Scott King working as a houseman at the Sheraton here in Atlanta, Georgia. To me, it was one of the most awesome and memorable experiences to happen to a young man such as myself from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Why? Because opportunities like this don't present itself where I'm from. Now, I forget what the event was, but I was scheduled to work that night. My co-worker Sheila and I were in charge of the night shift at that time, and we were setting up another room when we got a radio call to come to the grand ballroom to assist with some issues that were going on with the event. There was nothing, out of the ordinary or unusual to have to go and add either more tables or chairs or to remove tables and chairs, from a function. So once we got on site to see what was going on, we noticed the event that was progressing. And what they needed at the time was, as typical, they needed more room. So we were waiting to move some tables and some chairs so that they could carry on with their function. No big deal. It's part of the job of being a houseman. And while we stood in the doorway waiting for the opportunity to step in, the night manager, whose name I can't remember right now, he shows up and he stands with us while we wait. I start looking around the room at the people and at the event, just reveling in what was going on. I had never seen an event such as that, live and in person, so it was a big thing to me. But as I'm looking around, I start to recognize a few faces that I had seen, only in the history books and read about. One person that I immediately recognized was Mr. Andrew Young. He was approaching one of the tables with some folks that I, of course, did not recognize, but I did recognize him. And it was obvious that he had just came off the stage from speaking and was about to sit down with his guests. I was shocked at first because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was literally 200 feet or so, from Andrew Young, but there he was, live and in person. The next person that I recognized at the event who was standing on the stage speaking was Maya Angelou. And she had received some kind of award that night, and we stood in the wings watching as she did her acceptance speech. And just like everyone else, we applauded when she was done. And then she stepped off of the stage. And again, I started looking around the room, and the coup de grace for me was seeing the woman herself, Miss Coretta Scott King. And she was seated at the table with Mr. Young. Now, to me, this was an opportunity to meet history. True, bona fide black history. To be that close and not make an introduction was something of an opportunity that I could not let pass. Again, where I'm from, you don't get this kind of opportunity. These chances don't come. You don't get this kind of access to people like this. And here I was in a room with history. I made a decision at this point to go and introduce myself because I might not ever get this chance again. So just as I started to enter the ballroom, the supervisor stopped me and asked me where I was going, and I was like, look, I told him flat out, I was going to go meet Miss King. He looked at me, and then he was like, if I go do that and interrupt their event, I could be sent home. So for a minute, I thought about it, a quick minute, and I thought about it, but opportunity won out over the risk. And I told him that it would be worth being sent home. To me, it was. So I had to do it. My coworker Sheila, he looked at the supervisor and he looked at me, and he said, Willie, I will go with you to meet Miss King, and he'll have to send us both home. Now, if he sent us both home, there wouldn't be anybody to work the night and to break the room down when the event was over. So with that, I walked in the ballroom with Sheila behind me, and we approached the table. And right away, two gentlemen stepped up in suits. I'm assuming they were bodyguards, and they stopped us just as we got to the table. But just as they started to turn us around, Miss King stepped in between them and asked what was going on. And I just simply told her that my name was Willie Davis. I was from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and that I had read about her and her husband, Dr. King, in the history books, but that it was an honor to be able to be meeting her face to face, and that I would also be honored if I could just simply shake her hand. And she looked at me and she looked at Sela, and then she looked back at her bodyguards, and then she turned back to me and she said, "I don't give handshakes, I give hugs." And she gave both me and Sela a hug, as we were both caught by surprise by this. We weren't expecting that. But I did turn around and I looked back at my supervisor, kind of smugly, and I was like, you know what? If you're ready to send me home, I'm ready to go. But he didn't do so. Just then, Andrew Young came up, and we also got to meet and shake hands with him as well. I told him that my girlfriend, ex-girlfriend now, that my girlfriend's son at the time was doing a report on him from school, and if there was anything that he could say that I could tell her son, that he could put in his report. He grabbed a napkin and a pen, and he wrote on the napkin, "Good luck on your report, Raytwan." Signed, Andrew Young. Took that home, and I told Raytwan and the kids what the night was about and who I was able to meet, and they were just as amazed as I was. I then reached in my pocket and I gave Raytwan the signed napkin from Andrew Young and told him that this was for him. He took it to school the next day, and when he gave his report and presented the signed napkin by Andrew Young, he got an automatic A. I'm going to say this. Opportunities don't always come the way that we want them. They don't always come when we want them. But when we do have an opportunity, my suggestion is to take it, because it's an opportunity that you may not ever get again. I'm glad that I did that, because the following year, after meeting Coretta Scott King, she passed away. And I still have that memory of meeting her and getting a hug from her that will stay with me for a long time. Take the chance. Take the risk. Because you may never get another opportunity to do something like meet greatness again.
This was our guest storyteller, Willie D. Davis IV. You can find his music online under Next Icon.
Also, he will be appearing in 2 upcoming movies, Just As Good and Solid Rock Trust, later this year. But you can hear him on our original series, The Royal Heights, available on all podcast platforms.
Follow him on Instagram, @theactorWillieD and @NXICON for his music.
Hey everyone, this is AJAY TAMBE, the producer host of Criteria Starting Podcast. If you like this episode, if you like this story, if you like this show, please make sure you go and subscribe to our podcast, whichever platform you're listening on, Spotify, Google, Apple, Ghana, any platforms. Make sure you go and subscribe and follow to our show and connect with us on Instagram @podcastaudios. We are now in world's top 1% most popular podcasts. So make sure you go and check out our other series and episodes.